Hey, welcome back to the More YouTube channel. It's Chris back with my rant stroke thought of the day. And here it is, the thought of Newcastle United's transfer window. The dust has settled. It's a dawn of a new day. It may be sunny here in the northeast, but the outlook is looking pretty grim for Newcastle United in terms of the transfer window and their performance. Now, just before I get into this is a pre-warner for any of you Ned Flanders, Steve Rogers type characters who want to tell me off in the comments about my foul language. Well, let me explain this to you. I'm passionate about Newcastle United, and much like most of you guys are watching this, and I might slip out the odd expletive about an absolutely horrendous transfer window, and I think it's warranted. So if you don't like this kind of a thing, and you want to take little Timmy down to the park to kick the football, or go and, fish for fucking crabs or something down the seafront, crack on and go, mate. Consider that your warning. Right, into the transfer window. Awful, rancid, ridiculous, pathetic. There's just a couple of words I could use to describe this transfer window. I've not felt this vibe in the Newcastle United fan base for 3 years since the takeover. And just on that subject, before we get into this, the kind of animosity in amongst the fan base is split right down the middle here. There's the trusted process knackers who can't see anything other than PIF do no wrong. Darren Eales walks on water. Paul Mitchell's fantastic. He's the best thing since sliced bread. Fucker's only been here 5 minutes. First window, shite. Sorry, it's the truth. He may have walked into shite, but shite is still attached to his name. Would have been better off a fucking Grant or Phil, by the looks of it. Maybe they'd have signed a player or two. Probably a last knowing them two, mind you. But I don't watch EastEnders, but I know what those two fuckers were like. But you can't sit there and claim that Paul Mitchell's this fucking best sporting director on the planet because he's done fuck all in this window. That's a matter of fact. Going back to what they're saying, and these are some professional people as well. I saw Mark Douglas say this. I saw Pete Graves. I mean, talk about a buddy tweet from Pete Graves at Sky Sports. I don't know Pete personally. Seems like a lovely fella. He's always got time for people, but fuck me, Pete. Be objective. Do your job, as Roy Keane would say, one of the guys that works with you on Sky Sports. You probably don't speak to him, but listen to the fucker. Do your job and ask difficult questions. Stop sending out happy clapper, everyone's a winner, let's all hug, shining happy people fucking tweets when the club have failed miserably. Even Alan Shearer come out and said the club have failed to back the manager. Eddie Howe must be absolutely sick as fuck in this transfer window that with the state of what's happened upstairs in terms of backing him as a manager. Now, whether you believe the stories that Craig Hope's put out or other people have put out about Eddie demanding that it's Mark Gahey or nobody, I don't know. It's hard to see whether they're actually authentic or whether they've just been, slipped out to media buddies like Pete Graves and the like for the club to put out there to get away with the fact that they've been asleep behind the fucking wheel. So, but these happy clappers, these fucking TTP idiots, you become like a cult. You really have. Darren Eales could fuck your wife and steal your car, and you still think he was fucking brilliant. You need to get your head out of your arse firmly and put down the Kool-Aid. Stop swigging it by the bottle. I mean, Pete Graves must have a fucking tea bar with taps of Kool-Aid in his house. The bollocks he was spinning on social media. It's utter fucking nonsense. People have got a right to be pissed off and to ask questions because this hierarchy have done fuck all in this transfer window. They did fuck all in the January transfer window too. In my mind, if they bought a player or two in January, maybe we would have got top four. It would have been a push, but maybe we would have at least got Europa League football because we were missing just one or two key players while the other lads were out injured just to get us over the line, and we had bad performances that made it difficult to get to that point. Yes, Man United won the FA Cup that no fucker thought they were going to, but we shouldn't have had to rely on that. Our league position should have been secure enough to get European football, and it wasn't because we were light of bodies, because we didn't sign any fucker. So that is a matter of fact. But these guys quoting, well, could be worse, the Ashley windows were terrible. That was 3 fucking years ago. You don't talk about things 3 years ago. If all you do is hang on to the past, you'll never look forward to the future. Put that on a fucking coaster, Pete Graves and the like, and Mark Douglas and every other happy clapper tit who's trying to tell you not to feel pissed off that the club has let you down, let Eddie Howe down this transfer window. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit, in my opinion. Everyone's got a right to feel pissed off. If you want to trust the process, and have another 2 or 3 windows of signing nobody and watching the club slip down into the mediocrity of mid-table once again and still quote, well, it's better than the Mike Ashley window. This wasn't better than the Mike Ashley window. This looked every single part of Mike Ashley Ashley window. Go back, put the Kool-Aid down, have a cup of tea, and read the people that we signed this transfer window. We signed a Greek goalkeeper from Nottingham Forest who didn't get a fucking game for them, who was shite, and we only did it because we were letting Elliot Anderson, one of our most exciting young players in years, go to Nottingham Forest to balance the books, right? That's an awful deal. John Ruddy got relegated with Birmingham City. Fucker's nearly 43 or something. Rubbish deal. Absolutely terrible. We signed Salah from Sheffield United, who didn't score a goal in 21 fucking Premier League appearances. If other clubs had made that signing, you'd have been taking the piss out of them. You know, if the Mackhams had been in the Premier League or Middlesbrough and signed that player, you should be laughing your nuts off about it. So you can't have double standards and say that's all of a sudden a good signing for us because he can't kick his own arse. He might turn into a good player, but he's not a good player at the minute. His goal record says he's not a good player. You know, and it's not good signings. It really, really isn't good signs whatsoever. Lewis Hall on a permanent. Yes, you could say that's a good deal, but was that even a deal that was thrusted on Eddie by the board or by Dan Ashworth at the time? Because Eddie seemed reluctant to play Lewis Hall. He looks like he's turned into a really good left back, so maybe that one's going to pan out. Even going back to that window where we did spend money, Harvey Barnes, I don't think he was Eddie Howe's signing. Lewis Hall, I don't think was Eddie Howe's signing. Tino Livramento maybe was. Tino's obviously got an England squad. Fair play to Tino, and he's putting some good performances. Lewis Hall looks like he's turning into a good left back. Harvey Barnes is a good player, but Harvey Barnes played in the same position as Anthony Gordon. Why didn't he sign a right winger with that kind of pedigree that Harvey Barnes has got and put him in the team? It would have balanced everything out perfectly. Is it Eddie that loves Miggy and Murphy too much, or is it the board happy that they've got two players pre-takeover? So go back in the past to that. We have so many players pre-takeover still in this squad that you guys seem to think all of a sudden they're going to be world beaters and top four contenders. It ain't going to happen. So go back and talk about Ashley windows. We have Ashley squad players that are still here, stinking up this squad with mediocrity, and you lot don't seem to see why there's a need for improvement. It's pathetic. It really, really is. And to attack people who are asking what the fuck is going on 3 years later is lazy by you professional journalists and media pundits, and just downright stupid by people on the other side of the fence. We all want Newcastle United to do well, but you can't do well if you've still got players in your squad who will win the championship with you, unless those players have improved exponentially, which some of them have improved a lot, but not exponentially. Jamal Lascelles has not turned into Rio Ferdinand. Jacob Murphy has not turned into even Kieran Dyer when he was at Newcastle. Never mind fucking, Ronaldo or Beckham or another great right winger I can think of off the top of my head. So you need to get your head out your arse and realise we are not progressing. We are stagnant right now, and if something doesn't change quickly, we will regress back to where we were previously belonging in the mid-table mediocrity down by the relegation spaces, because this football club needs investment in key players. Players like Sandro Tonali, that was the last real starting 11 player that the board seemed to back Eddie Howe with, and that was 2 windows ago now. It's not good enough. It really isn't good enough. The club needs to sort this out. I'd love to see what they come out and say. Darren Eales, every time I see this bloke, he looks more and more like a politician, which is quite pertinent, really, given the fact that not only have Newcastle had a shocking transfer window, but for some crazy reason, they allowed Sir John Hull, who I've got a lot of respect for, to turn St James's Park into a political hotbed platform for a party that is responsible for quite a lot of poverty and hardship in the northeast for those Newcastle United fans who are probably struggling to pay season tickets and buy shirts. That was very, very tone deaf, in my opinion, by the club, especially given the circumstances of everything that was going on. I don't know who's signing this shit off, but whether you care about the fan base or not, you might say you do in front of the camera, but that was piss poor. I'm not getting political, but that was fucking piss poor. Sort yourselves out. Going back to the transfer window itself, we haven't strengthened enough. It's simple. The starting 11 is good on paper. There's no doubt about that, right? But those players in particular have had a lot of injury problems. Nick Pope, serious injury problems last season. We didn't even get Trafford in, who everyone seemed to think Eddie Howe wanted as the next great England number one. And we didn't even get him in. We couldn't even get him in through the door. I mean, fucking hell, they couldn't even pay this guy off with the fence by the looks of it. Never mind get a player in. We haven't signed a centre-half, so we're relying on Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, Lloyd Kelly, Emil Kraft until Sven Botman is back, and potentially Jamal Lascelles. That is a hell of a gamble in terms of at the back there, because Schär loves to go down with a head injury. He's not getting any younger. He's obviously got suspended there, as you can see. Lloyd Kelly's brand new. He's not a world beater, he's a steady away fill-in player. Dan Burn has done well at centre-half, there's no doubt about that at all, but he is suspect to pace, and people know how to play against Dan Burn. If they put somebody pacey in against him, there's trouble there. So I think we've left the manager really short of options at the back. The midfield is probably the best area that we have in the squad, with Sandro Tonali coming back, Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, who is also prone to injuries as well. Last season he was barely here, so that's a huge gamble. Yes, we've got underneath that Joe Willock, who thankfully looks like he's not knackered, but he's also suspect of injuries. Sean Longstaff and Louis Miley staying in the squad, so the midfield has a bit of depth to it, which is decent. The front three, you've got Gordon, Isak and Barnes. Now, they're your front three. If Eddie doesn't play those front three, then that's on Eddie. The pressure mounts on Eddie. That's nothing to do with the board. That's on the manager. But outside of that, you've got Jacob Murphy and Miggy Almiron, who are limited players. We needed another player underneath that. We've sold one of the most exciting young prospects in Europe in Yankuba Minter. Yes, I know he didn't kick a ball for us, but you can see the lad had it. He's got it. He's got the quality. If you had no intention to go and buy a right winger this window and you're going to shoot your entire fucking load on a £70 million centre-half, you keep that winger and you sell some other fucker to balance the books. You do not sell a winger who's going to turn into a 50, 60 million winger himself because he's got the quality. That is terrible business. Bad business by the football club. And if they have done that, knowing they weren't going to sell or buy that winger, then that's fucking stupid. And they've got to come out and explain that. I don't know about you lot, but I, for one, don't even want to hear from this slippy little bastard. I don't want to hear about headroom and fucking PSR and jargon and all this other business bullshit that he comes out with. I want to know why you haven't backed the manager and you haven't improved key areas of the squad. I really do think that the PIF are starting to get a bit bored with this. I'll be brutally honest with you. And it's probably because they're wrapped up in red tape. You look at the money they're throwing around Saudi Arabia, buying massive players as well. I think Ivan Toney's went there now, isn't he? I think by looking at all the news about it, they were trying to get Victor Osimhen. Money's no object in the Saudi league. We're seeing, Cancelo go over there from previous Man City player. Ronaldo's over there, Neymar's over there. There is no money object for them in that league because they don't have the restrictions and the regulations that they're wrapped up with in the Premier League. And maybe they're just getting bored of not being able to spend in the Premier League, and they're just leaving Newcastle at the rot. They wouldn't be the first mega rich people to buy a toy and get bored with it and just leave it on the shelf to gather dust. And it's feeling that way now. It really, really is. I don't know whether they're waiting for the Manchester City court case to see whether City get a slap on the wrist, and then if they do, then they'll go all guns blazing in the next couple of windows. But the way that this is played out for Eddie Howe, I don't like the way that the tone is changing behind the scenes. Eddie Howe doesn't look happy. He doesn't sound happy. They haven't given the players that he's looking for. If the results start turning Eddie Howe, I don't think it would take much for these guys to pull the trigger and get rid. I actually think Eddie Howe is starting to look at this now and thinking that the England job is something that's maybe an escape route for him for Newcastle United. Now, I don't think Eddie wants to leave Newcastle. I don't think he's given up on us as a club. But if promises are being broken to the manager, then the manager will start to question whether the project is still as ambitious enough to fulfill his ambitions. And if he's got offers elsewhere, he will be looking at it. That's just life. You do that in any job, really, never mind football management. But Eddie Howe will be looking at that. And the more I look at it with Lee Carsley being temporary charge, the more I think the FA are probably hedging their bets for Eddie Howe. If the milk has turned sour behind the scenes with a hierarchy, and if the PIF don't really care what Eddie Howe has to say about things, and they just say get a new manager and put him in, we'll pay him a nice salary and he can get on with it, then I can really see this going a bit wrong for Eddie Howe and Newcastle United. But I hope that I'm wrong, because results will dictate where we go as a football club. The transfer window is done now. We've got what we've got. And what we've got probably isn't going to be enough to get us top four, if I'm brutally honest with you. I had my doubts beforehand. I've certainly got my doubts now. I think with a long, hard, rigorous season ahead of us, with the players that we do have as good as they are, the injury records that they have, Isak with the niggles that he gets, Joe Linton with the niggles that he gets, Nick Pope, two major serious injuries underneath him. There's no quality there. You've got Gillespie, you've got Ruddy. Dubravka's still at the football club. We know Dubravka's suspect as well as a goalkeeper. So if anything happens to Pope, we're in serious trouble. The defence is weak because we haven't got enough cover there. The midfield, yes, is full of depth and strength, but outside of them front three, the quality does drop off because Sean Longstaff is a limited footballer. As much as he runs all day, Joe Willock is good, but he's injury prone. Louis Miley is very good, promising, but he's only 18 years old. It's a lot to put on a young lad. We'll put ourselves in a real serious position here as a squad, a real serious position that if we get a couple of bad injuries injuries, we're going to be exposed once again. And I worry that if the results don't pick up, the pressure will mount on Eddie. And this lot upstairs, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, will pull a trigger and get rid of this manager who has transformed us really from relegation fodder to Champions League contenders. And he deserves the credit that he gets. Yes, you can question his tactics and his over loyalty to players, but overall he's done a fantastic job at Newcastle. And for this lot to hang him out to dry, Shearer's called him out, George Corkin's called him out. It's not good enough. They haven't supported this manager. They're putting pressure on him. The fan base is starting to turn on each other and fight with each other internally. I mean, the trust the process Kool-Aid is incredible. It really, really is. I just wonder, I don't want to see what happens because I don't want Newcastle to be in this position. But if Newcastle do deliver awful performances and slip back down the table to mid-table and are written off by everybody, I just wonder what the air is going to turn into. And even these trust the process wankers with their mugs and T-shirts and keychains, I think will start to question what the hell is going on. And there's no amount of media buddies that will be able to take the pressure off the board. But my concern is that they'll focus that pressure on the manager. But we'll wait and see what the club come out with, what bullshit they spin on this. It's been an awful window, a rancid window. Whether you trust the process or not, it ain't good enough. Newcastle hasn't delivered. They haven't backed the manager. The pressure's on. We've got to get back to winning ways in the Premier League. We've got to try to get the best out of the players that we've got. The starting 11 is a good starting 11 if Eddie can get them fit and firing and raring to go and keep them fit. That's all on the likes of James Bunce, who's been brought in by the hierarchy to try and concentrate on that. But again, questions about that need to be asked. Our intensity has dropped off. Is that because Bunce is in the year saying, no, we can't play that, but that level of intensity? So because we're stepping off, we're letting teams back into the game. And that's a direct critique of Eddie Howe's tactics. So it's not great behind the scenes. I am concerned about what the hell is going to go on. Now the window's over, though, I'm quite glad we can stop speculating and gesticulating and jostulating and just fucking get on with it. Get on with the league, get on with the focus of trying to get into the top four, which I think is a real uphill climb for Newcastle this season. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think about this transfer window. Do you think it's as shit as what I think it was? Are you disappointed that the club have let you down? Do you think you've been lied to? Has the manager been hung out to dry? There's loads of questions to ask. Me and Mark will ask these questions on what's going on as well, but I just want to jump on and give you my take on it because I'm pissed off with it and I don't think it's good enough. Have a belt, everybody. Hit subscribe, like the video, help the channel grow, and we'll catch you later.
Newcastle United 3.